Are your timpani cranky? Well, I'll give you a couple of hints. If you don't have a foot pedal and you just have three little legs that they're sitting on, your timpani might be cranky. If you have this mysterious little spike sticking up and you don't know what it's for, your timpani might be cranky. Now, these aren't actually called cranky timpani. I was just trying to be slightly humorous in a very nerdy way. These are what one might call modernized Baroque timpani or imitation Baroque timpani. Some people might actually refer to them as Baroque timpani, but certain purists certainly would not. Actual Baroque timpani would be sitting on what some people call a timpani cradle, which would be either three wooden legs folded, where they would just sit on them, or it would be an assembly of metal legs with some sort of a cool colonial looking pattern on them, and the bowls literally just sit on them, and you can pick them up and move them. The other difference is that you would have tuning lugs that you can tune by hand, and you would have to tune the timpani by hand all the way around, all six lugs, every single time you want to change the pitch. Or you would have a crank that is attached to something that looks kind of like a bicycle chain that's attached to each lug all the way around, and then when you crank, it's actually tuning all the lugs at the same time. These timpani have modern style tension rods that go from the middle into a center post that is attached to the cranking mechanism. So the guts of the drum are basically exactly the same as modern timpani that you would tune with a foot pedal, but you have the crank system instead. There are advantages and disadvantages to this type of drum, so let's go over some of the advantages. First of all, this particular drum, like I said, it's not sitting on a cradle, it's sitting on retractable legs. So I can actually, for the ease of transportation, I can actually retract the leg all the way into the drum. And one tip that you might be interested in is one thing that I did in order to make it easier for me to put them back where I like to have them, is I just drew a line with a Sharpie there, so that whenever I put the drum back, whenever I flip the drum back up, it is back at the line that I want it to be at. So that's one advantage. Another advantage of these drums is that they're actually made out of fiberglass and they're not made out of copper. So it's they're very light. It's very easy to pick them up, to transport them around. And then another advantage, and we'll get a little more technical now, another advantage of them, which is also a disadvantage, which I'll go over in a minute, is that you have to actually use the crank in order to tune them. By the way, when you put the crank on, don't put it on partially, make sure it's all the way down. But you have to use the crank to tune them, which means that one of your hands is going to be occupied every time you change the tuning. Now in Baroque music, typically you do not change the tuning of the drum over the course of the piece at all. Like Handel's Messiah or the Bach Christmas Oratorio, you don't change the tuning. Bach Mass in B minor, you don't change the tuning. Even in a lot of Mozart's music, you don't change the tuning over the course of the piece. Most of Beethoven's music, I think certainly symphonies 1 through 7, you do not change the tuning over the course of the music. So these drums are more designed for that kind of music where the tuning changes in terms of in the middle of a piece either don't happen at all or happen very seldom, because as you can see, it's a fair amount of trouble for me to move the drum even a semitone, let alone a tone, let alone a third, for example. But therein lies one of the advantages, which is that I can tune very precisely with these instruments. So with a foot pedal, taking the foot pedal from here to here, that's the whole range of the drum, like a minor sixth-ish would be the range of a typical timpani. Whereas with this, let's see, I'm at the bottom of the range of the drum now. Let's see how many full turns it takes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 full turns for me to do the whole range of the drum. And the advantage of that is that I can be way more precise with my tuning. So with the foot pedal, just like the tiniest little bit of difference will really, really affect the pitch of the drum. It could affect it as much as a semitone. Whereas we're talking like fractions of a semitone here, like eighth tones and 16th tones, even 32nd tones. It's almost like I'm operating a wood planer, where you just turn it a quarter of a turn and it brings it down a 256th of an inch. Like, that's how precise we're talking about here. So anyway, there we are. That's in terms of the whole range of the drum and how precise you can be with the tuning. That is the advantage. In terms of the disadvantage, if you were to actually try to do on-the-fly tuning changes, it's really, really not going to work out for you. Here's an example of me trying to do this, and this is going to be ridiculous. Now, purists don't want you to play that way, and neither does anybody else for that matter, because it's absolutely ridiculous. Nobody should ever be expected to use Stephen's script to do a one-handed roll-on timpani, although once for Tchaikovsky's Fourth Orchestral Suite Mozartiana, where I played all of the timpani and battery and keyboard percussion parts myself, I had to do a one-handed roll-on the timpani, but that was because of a budget issue with a particular orchestra with which I was playing. But in any case, you should never have to do that. You should always be able to just... You can see how precise I can get my tuning. And if I think I'm even the slightest bit off, very difficult for me to get that degree of precision with a foot pedal. But with a foot pedal, I can actually be doing tuning changes on the fly while playing. And in a piece like Bartók Concerto for Orchestra or the Bartók Sonata for 2 pianos and percussion, it's absolutely necessary that you do that. Like, if you had 4 of these on stage, of these modernized Baroque timpani, there's absolutely no way you'd be able to do that kind of tuning on the fly. So those are some of the advantages and disadvantages of modernized Baroque timpani, aka imitation Baroque timpani, aka Baroque timpani, aka cranky timpani. Thank you very much for watching. Have a great day.